If you're building SaaS applications like I am every day, sooner or later, you're going to need to figure out how to handle accounts and handling teams within an account and giving users the ability to send invitations to their team members and accepting those invitations and giving users the ability to log in and then switch between multiple accounts that they might be members of. So all of that is wrapped up into sort of like the same users and accounts system. And I handle it the same way in every application that I build. So I'm going to demonstrate how I do that. So here is a demo Ruby on Rails app that I just spun up. And I'm using Ruby on Rails 8. I'm also using the instrumental components library, which I designed. Here is my sign up view. And I'm going to actually register for a new account. And I'm going to sign up. Okay, so I just landed inside of my new account. Again, this is just a demo application, so there's not much here. But if I go up here to the top right, I can see some account settings. Now, this here is actually the name of my account. It automatically gave my account a name, and it took that from my email address. But I'm actually going to rename it to my actual company account, which is Instrumental Products. And the slug is what I use in the URL. I'll just leave that as it is for now. Okay, so now my account is called Instrumental Products, and here I can manage the settings for my account. Okay, so I'm going to head over here to Team Members. And so far, I just see myself, and I can see that I am an admin user in here. And if I click here to edit my role settings, it just shows me that I am the owner of this account. Now I'm going to go ahead and invite someone else into my team. I'll go to Invite, and I'm going to create a new invitation. And I'm going to customize the message that my team member, Emma, is going to receive. And I can also set here which role this person is going to be when they receive and accept their invitation. Of course, I can change their role later on, but I want to set it up front. So I'm going to set it here. Let's go ahead and send this invitation. Okay, so I've just sent that invitation. And so now I actually see my list of invitations managed here in my account. And I can see that this one that I sent to Emma is now pending. And if I need to, I can go in here and resend the invitation, or I can even edit the invitation, maybe change the message, maybe even change which role she's going to be once she, accepts the invite, or I can cancel the invitation altogether. But I've already sent it. Now here I'm using a gem called Letter Opener that's really useful for testing emails or testing mailers from your Ruby on Rails application. And so here's what the mailer looks like. It's all set up. It's personalized to Emma, and it also contains this button, which automatically pulled in the color from my application. Okay, so I'm going to now accept this invitation as if I'm the team member. I'm Emma. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually open it in an incognito window so that I'm in a different browser. Okay, so here I'm accepting the invitation, and this page here tells me, as the person accepting the invitation, that I've been invited to join Instrumental Products, and it pre-filled my email address. So all I need to do is just set my own password and accept the invitation. Awesome. So now I'm logged in as Emma in this account. And you'll notice up here that I don't actually see the links to the account settings or anything. And that's because Emma was set with a role of member, which is a lower level permission level. Now I'm going to jump back to my view as the account owner or the account admin, if you will. I'm going to go into team members, and now I see myself as the admin, and I see Emma here as a member. And I can go into Emma's role, and I can update her role from member to admin. So let's say I want to kind of bump her up into more of a management level. I can update that right here. Now let's go back to Emma's view, and I just refreshed. So now Emma sees this link to settings, and she can also invite other team members. That's one of the other capabilities that admins have. Now, Emma can view any of these team members. Like if she views me, she'll see that this person is the owner of the account. And if she views herself, she can actually change her own role, or she even has the ability to leave the team altogether. So team members can actually remove themselves from an account. Or if I go back to my view here and I go to team members, I can also look at any other member and remove that person from the account. And when I do that, it's going to warn me and say, do you really want to remove this person from the account? I'm going to cancel for now. And if I do it over here, notice that the text is slightly different because it's speaking to me. It's like, do you want to leave the instrumental products team? If I click that, this message is also personalized to me. Do you really want to leave the instrumental products team? So I think these little pieces of microcopy are really important when it comes to designing and building applications to make sure that the user is really clear on what's happening and where they are oriented in the application. Let's just cancel that for now. Now, I want to show you one more thing in here. So I'm here logged in as Emma, and Emma is a team member inside the instrumental products team. But let's say Emma also wants to open up her own account on this application, separate from the instrumental products team. So Emma can actually do that. She can go to add account, and let's just call this, let's say the name of her account is called Robots Inc. And now I'm looking at the Robots Inc. settings as a totally different slug and everything. And if I go to team members, Emma here is the admin, and Emma is actually the owner of this account. Now, if I jump up here to my menu up here, I'm currently looking at the Robots Inc. account. That's the current account that I'm viewing. But I can click this to switch between the two accounts that I am a member of. Remember, Emma is the owner of Robots Inc., and Emma is a team member inside Instrumental Products. So I can click Instrumental Products, and now it says switched to Instrumental Products. And up here, now it says Instrumental Products is the team that I'm currently viewing. Now, normally it would be like an application with a bunch of content and features. And so since I'm viewing the Instrumental Products account, I would be seeing the Instrumental Products content, whatever the application would have for me there. And if I switch to Robots Inc., now I'm looking at Robots Inc. Again, this is just a demo app, so it kind of looks the same, but just assume that like these applications would have different content based on which one that I'm currently viewing. But the nice thing for users, of course, is that they can switch between their multiple accounts without needing to log out and then log back in or maintain different usernames and passwords. Just a single username having access to multiple accounts, right? Now, remember, the user always has their user profile, and all of this is powered by our authentication component that's included in Instrumental Components. And I have an entire video that walks through the authentication upgrades that we give you with Instrumental Components. And you can check that out after this one. So whenever a user is editing their own profile, like their name or their avatar, or their time zone, or editing their password, that's applying to their user profile, which is used across all of the different accounts that a user might have. Now, I want to show you one more thing with this system before we dive into the code and show you how it's all put together. This account switcher is actually going to remember which account I left as my active account last time. So currently I'm viewing Robots Inc., right? I can see that with the check mark. If I sign out and then I sign back in as this person, it remembered that I left it viewing Robots Inc. And if I switch to Instrumental Products, so now that's the active one, I'm going to sign out again and I'll log back in. And it remembered that I left it on Instrumental Products. So that's really handy for a user who might, most of the time you might be using one account as your primary account, but occasionally you might be using a second one. You don't want to have to come back here and switch every single time just because of, let's say, the order that you created your accounts. It'll just remember it for you. And we do that by setting a cookie in the browser. Oh, one last thing I forgot to show is after my teammate Emma accepted her invitation, it also sent another mailer to me as the owner to let me know that, hey, Emma has accepted your invitation. So there are two mailers at play here. One is the one that sends to the invitee to say you've been invited, and you can click the link to accept your invitation. And then once that person does go ahead and accept their invitation and sets their password and logs in, it notifies the person who sent the invitation. In most cases, that's the account owner. And then I have a handy link here that I can go to manage that person's role in my team. So all these little details around accounts and teams and invitations, it's all included in the teams component that's in Instrumental Components. But I want to dive into the code base to show you how all this stuff is wired up. Okay, now before we look at code, let's talk about the models and the associations at play here. Starting with the very basics, we have a user and we have an account. Now, on the user model, you would typically be storing the user's email address, username, avatar, time zone, password. So all of these things are specific to each individual user. Users are individual people, right? Now, an account is not a person. An account is what I think of as like a company or an organization, right? So on the account model, you would be storing probably a logo, maybe the company name. You would have probably a variety of settings on the account. The billing for the account is attached to the account and not a specific user. And we have another component and an entire video all about how billing is set up with instrumental components. You can watch that later as well. So far we have users. These are people, and accounts. These are companies, right? But what about the ability for users to be members of multiple accounts and switching between accounts and handling different roles? How do we do that? Well, that's where a third model comes into play called account user. This is a joining model and a joining database table. So the account user sits in between the user and the account. And the account user record is where we store the role that the user or the person has in the account. And so a role could be like admin or member, or you might have other roles in your account. And usually these roles manage the permission levels, like the level of access that each person would have to certain features and capabilities inside the account. Let me jump into my code base here and actually show you these associations. So here is our user model. The user has many account users. The user has many accounts through account users. And the user has many invitations. And if I look at the account model, the account belongs to owner, which is a user, the class named user. The account has many account users, and the account has many users through account users. So again, we use this account users model to join them. Let's take a look at that. So the account user belongs to an account and belongs to a user. So this is that joining model that sits in between them. And as you can see, we're setting the role using an enum value. Cool. So what happened when I actually filled out the registration form and created my account? Well, me, Brian, I created a user record. And right after I created the user record, it created an account and an account user record for me. So I'm going to look at the database. I like to use Table Plus on the Mac to view my database. So here is my users table. And so far there's me and Emma. So here's my user profile. And so far it just has my email address when I signed up, and it stored my time zone. I covered how we are detecting and setting the time zone in the video on authentication. You can check that out. Okay, so I've got my user record. That's ID 1. And then we have 2 accounts in the system. If you remember, one was called Instrumental Products. That's my account. And the other is Robots Inc. That was created by Emma. Let's look at the first one, Instrumental Products. That's account ID 1. And then if we look at account users, user ID 1, that's me. Account ID, that's Instrumental Products. And this record here is what is joining. And one more thing, the way that I set it up is if I look at the Instrumental Products account record, there is this owner ID. So that references the user ID, which is 1, and that is me. And that's how we define the one singular owner of each individual account. One more look at the account users record here. Role is set to 0. Again, if we look at the account user model, the role is an enum and 0 means admin. Let me go back to these slides. So again, my user has an account user, which has an account, and that's what joins it. Now, remember, I invited a second user, Emma, right? So Emma is another user in the database, and we created another account user for Emma, and that one also has the role of admin. But instead of creating a separate account, we were adding Emma as an account user in the Instrumental Products account. So the account has 2 different account users, and the account has 2 users through account users. Now we can keep going with this, of course. I can invite a third user. Let's say this user is named Juliet, and this account user could be a member role. and that too can belong to the same account. So here we have 3 users. These are 3 different people, 3 account user records. So each user has their own account user record, and all of these belong to the single account. And that's how an account can have multiple users in it. The other thing that I showed you is that a single user can own or can belong to multiple accounts. So if we look at Emma again, this is Emma's user record. Emma has 2 account user records, one where she's an admin user in the account named Instrumental Products, and then the other is where she's the owner of an account called Robots Inc., right? So Emma, the user, has 2 account user records, and Emma is in 2 accounts through account users. And that's how Emma is able to switch between the 2 accounts. All of this is easy to spin up in Instrumental Products. And actually, I'm going to do that right now to finish off this video. So I'm going to tear this down and start a totally new Rails app. Now, my fresh Rails app just starts off with some basic stuff like just a hello world page. There's really nothing else there yet. I did install the instrumental components gem, and you can find instructions for that at instrumental.dev. But before we even get into the instrumental stuff, I want to start off my app with a few baseline things. So first, of course, we're going to need authentication, just the basic ability for users to sign up and log in. So for that, we will use the Rails 8 authentication generator, Rails G authentication. And I have another video that walks through everything that you get with the core Rails 8 authentication. You can watch that video right after this one. I'm going to migrate those migrations. And since I'm using instrumental components, I'm also going to need active storage and action text. Migrate those. All right, let's see where we're at. All right, so now we have just a basic sign-in page. Not very exciting yet, so let's make it a little bit nicer. Let's go ahead and install the instrumental authentication upgrade, if you will. It's the authentication component that comes in instrumental. So we're going to do Rails instrumental authentication. And along with this component, it's also going to install an application layout. And since I'm installing instrumental for the first time, it's going to ask me which icons library I want to use. And the one that I prefer to use is Font Awesome. And I happen to have a kit ID for that. Now, alternatively, you could just use Google material icons or hero icons. Those are also built into instrumental components, ready to use. Okay, so I've installed some upgrades there. I'm going to migrate that database. And what that just did was it added a few things to the user. It also added that user profile and the time zone detection and the avatar system. Again, those details I cover in the full video on the authentication upgrades. Okay, so now our login screen is much cleaner and it has a nice, more professional look. And I can go to the sign up page. Okay, so we're getting there, but I have not yet installed the Teams component. And that's the final piece here. So I'm just going to do Rails instrumental Teams. And that is also going to give us a bunch of migrations that we need to run. Oops. That's what happens when I try to speak and type at the same time. DB migrate. Okay, so now we are good to go. I'm going to sign up again. And here we are. So once again, I've got my new account. It's called BC. And here's my settings and team members and the invitation system. It's all there. So let's just take a look real quick at the code base and what we have. So I already showed you a little bit of the user model. So some of these things are brought in from the authentication stuff, but down here we have some methods where we can check, whether the person is an account user, what their current role is. Are they an owner, an admin, a member? And then down here is a create account method, and that runs as a callback after the creation of a new user. So when a user is created, so when a user fills out the registration form on the sign up page, their account is created as a callback here on the user model. And here we create the account. And to start off, we just sort of like grab the first part of the user's email address, and that's what we use as the initial account name. And then the user can of course go into their account settings and change the name of their account if they want to. And then we are also creating an account user record for this account. We're giving them the role of admin, and we set that user as the owner on the account. So all of that happens immediately through this callback method. Let's look at our team members, which is account users. In our views, we have an account users folder. We can look at the index, and that is where we are listing each of these account users. And then if we go to the edit screen, this is the edit screen here. So if I click into it, again, I'm the owner of this account, and each account user has this settings dropdown where I can remove them from the team or edit their role. Okay, let's go into inviting. So if I invite someone, now we are in invitations. So if I look at the invitation model, invitations belong to an account. Invitations are their own model and table where we can manage and resend invitations. And we can also check the status of whether it's pending or whether it's been accepted and which role the person is going to be after they accept their invitation. We've got some scopes to look at that. So if I send an invitation now and I can customize the text here, that happens through this rich text message. So now I'm viewing the index of all of my current invitations, and this is scoped to just the pending ones. It's not going to show all of the accepted invitations from the past, right? The other thing here is I can resend an invitation. So if I look at my invitations controller, here we create the invitations, and then we have an invitation mailer, which we send to the invitee, and we can update and we can resend an invitation just like that, which also sends that mailer again. As I showed earlier, the person can accept their invitation, and that handles the acceptance process. And we have a couple of checks to make sure that the invitation is still valid, and also to check whether the invitation has already been accepted or not. So you can't accept an invitation multiple times. All that stuff is handled. We also check to see if the person being invited is an existing user. So if they are, then you can invite existing users to join multiple accounts, right? We are avoiding the need to have users create multiple usernames and passwords. A single user with an email address can have a single password, and they can be invited to access and become team members of multiple accounts in the application. So all of this stuff is handling all that logic. It just detects whether the user exists or not. And if they don't, then the user will be created. If they do, then the only thing that we actually need to do is create an account user for the user. And then, of course, we can destroy the invitation, which would effectively cancel or void the invitation, so the user won't be able to accept the invitation after that. All right, now the last thing I want to look at is that account switcher, which happens up here. So here I'm looking at the accounts controller, and down here we have this method called switch. And to show you this, I'm actually just going to create a second account. We'll call this BC2. Okay, so now I have two accounts, and I can switch between them here. So when I'm clicking one of these links, it's calling our switch method, and it's going to redirect to the root and tell me that I have switched to that account. And we are also setting a cookie with the account slug. So if I look at my application cookies here, we are setting this cookie called current account, and the value of that is the account slug. Now, every account gets an account slug, which is automatically generated, but the users can customize that if they want to. Sometimes you might actually use these slugs in the URL, especially if your application gives each account their own subdomain. That gets a little bit more complicated, but you can do something like that with this, where the slug is the subdomain, or it might all live on a single root domain, and that's what I have in this case, where everything is sort of scoped underneath the account slug. We also use that to store in the cookie so that later when I log back in again, it detects that that was the last one that I looked at. And I'm going to log right back in to the account where I left off last time. That is how I handle accounts and teams and account switching and invitations to team members in all of my SaaS applications that I build with Ruby on Rails and the instrumental components gem. I have several other videos, including one that covers the Rails 8 authentication and all of our upgrades, including the registration form and the user profile stuff in our authentication upgrades. I invite you to check out that video right now. And thanks for sticking with me. Again, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments, and I would love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.